and welcome from my little space here in Vienna. My name is Luise, I'm a literature student and writer, and I'm currently writing my master thesis. And here's a little story how I happened to transcribe handwritten documents by one of the authors that I'm writing about. I have mentioned this before, but I thought I'll give you a little story time and some insight on this work and how it all came to be. And let me tell you, this author is quite interesting. There is a little bit of a Bridgerton, Jane Austen tea in there as well. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm writing my master thesis on female authorship in the Viennese modernism, and I'm looking at the production and publication conditions for 3 different authors: Emilie Mataja, Else Jerusalem, and Rosa Mayreder. One of the criteria while I was figuring out what authors I want to write about was how much first-hand material is available to me. And with available, I mean not only accessible, but also readable, because handwritten material, it's great when it's out there, but if I'm not able to read it, it won't help me with my research. So with Emilie Mataja, I knew that there was a lot of handwritten material in the Vienna library, in the town hall, but I was like, I'm probably not able to read this, to decipher it, because back in the days they used a different writing style, so different letters as we know them today. Previous generations still learned this writing, but I didn't, so it's pretty hard to decipher when you first see it. I will get into this a little bit later, but first let's go back a little bit in time before I started transcribing. So I went to a reading. It was about this book by Doris Brehm, Eine Frau zwischen gestern und morgen. The author is already dead, but the publisher is doing a whole cycle about forgotten female authors. And after the reading, I was quite nervous, but I felt like this aligned so much with my master thesis. So I went up to the 2 editors and just told them that I love their work and I find it very interesting because this is my master thesis topic and blah blah. And all of a sudden, long story short, I had an appointment with one of the editors who works at the Vienna Library, because she told me that they are actually doing their next publication on Emilie Mataja, or one of Emilie Mataja's books. It is an exciting day. I'm getting ready to go to the Vienna Library and see if I can gather some information about Emilie Mataja. I'm meeting someone from the library. Maybe she can help me to work with the handwritten scripts that they have from this author. Absolutely no idea what to expect, but I think it's gonna be fine. And she showed me the handwritten documents. I had never seen them before. I didn't know how confusing it might be to try and read it. And she had the faith in me that I could at least give it a try and ask me if I wanted to kind of split the work, because there is so much material. And for me, like, there is a dissertation out there from a previous student who wrote about Emilie Mataja, where there are many citations of the first-hand material. So I could have used that in the worst case scenario, but it's obviously so much better to work with the actual documents. And I started transcribing. On the first day, I really thought, I'm not gonna make it. Every second word is so unrecognizable, but after a while you really get the hang of it. I'm in the Paternoster, but I forgot where to get off. I think it's here. That was the wrong one. Let's try again. You always have to wait for it to come back, and then you just hop in. was just a short library session and it's time to go home, or no, actually to work. It's time to have lunch and then go to work and then go home. But now I'm gonna take the Paternoster one more time. Okay, let's step in and let's go down this time. Like, the whole experience of taking an elevator is so much better. Okay, that was my floor. Another day at the library, another ride in this beautiful elevator. And I was surprised how readable her handwriting is. So, to give you a little bit of context, Kurrent is an old German handwriting, and it evolved from late medieval cursive writing, and the German-speaking countries are almost the only ones who used Kurrent in that way. I read that it also spread to Scandinavia and to Czechia, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it's known as the German handwriting, and it was used for quite a long time, from around 1500, the modern era, up until the early 1900s, until it was banned by the Nazi regime. I will get to that in a bit. And the word Kurrent originates in the Latin word currere, that means running, and it makes a lot of sense when you see how it looks. But it also looks more broken and less round than Latin script. Back then, the government, and especially within administration, they just needed a common script that everyone could read and write. So they started to standardize it, and in the German-speaking countries, it was Kurrent. So this is painful for us nowadays, for everyone who's not able to read it. And the interesting part is that during the Nazi regime, they first wanted to use Kurrent and also the printed equivalent, which is Fraktur, but they realized that no one else in the occupied countries was able to read and write it. So they made up an excuse that it actually descended from Jews, which is not correct, and then they banned it. There is also another version of it that came up quite late, which is called Sütterlin, but that's also something you come across quite often. I thought that transcribing these documents would be an absolute nightmare, but it turned out that Emilie Mataja used a lot more Latin letters in between, that it was kind of a mixture. And now when I look at it, I'm like, why was it so hard at the first place? But obviously you have to get in, and it just takes a while. It's even nowadays sometimes really hard to read someone else's handwriting. And in between, she also used Kurrent letters, so that just took a while for me to understand it and know what it looked like. Hello, I'm sitting at my desk. It is Saturday, and I felt like, let's do some transcribing. Let's do some transcribing, and it feels like decoding some secret code, and it's painful. It's interesting, but a little bit painful, because you have the one sentence that works really nice. It's like, oh yeah, I get this. And then there is a word that is completely like squibberish, and you're like, what does that mean? Geselasich. Geschib. Yeah, and this is what I'm up to, and it's like kind of learning a new language. It reminds me of my Latin days, because I was pretty bad in Latin, and like every other word was a complete myth to me, where I had no idea what it meant. It's also exciting. It's like when you try to decipher the word, and then you are like, okay, I don't understand it, and then after a while you go back to it, and all of a sudden it makes sense because you look at it from, I don't know, a different view. And then you try out different letters, and all of a sudden it makes sense. And this is really cool, but it's like this stop and go. It's not like a nice flow where you just write down what it says here on the page. Sich nach und nach anderes. Okay. Now I get it, because the T and the E are so close together that it looks like a different letter, but it's actually two separate letters. It's good. That's good. You also have to take into consideration that a lot of words from back then are just not used anymore. So it's really weird to hear them, and certain structures of sentences we wouldn't use that nowadays in our language. So you stumble over it because you're like, is this really the word that is written here, or is this really does this grammatically make sense? But it often does, because the style was different. Yeah, you have to get into the tone of the language from back then, and this is just taking some time to get adjusted to it. And let's talk about the document itself. So this is kind of a diary, but not really. It's actually just a summary of her actual diaries. It's a censored version of her diaries. A big part of the document was her writing about men. She loved to be courted, but she also loved to play with the men. So she really was giving them hot and cold. On the one day, she was so sweet with them and she ran after them. And on the next, she just gave them the cold shoulder and was playing hard to get, and was like, I don't like you anymore. Like I said, these are not her actual diaries. It's from a retro perspective, where she often says, I was quite mean and I wouldn't do this like I did it back then, or I wouldn't say this again, it was mean. So who was this author? Her name was Emilie Mataja, but she published under the pseudonym Emil Mario. This was very common during the time, so many people wrote under pseudonym, especially women, often under a male pseudonym. It also makes sense because Emilie's father, he forbid her to write. He felt like it wasn't suitable for her. He also didn't like what she was writing about, because she was obsessed with France and Napoleon III, and she made this a subject in a lot of her texts and also her diaries. And her father read her and her siblings' diaries. I mean, imagine one of your parents reads your diaries and then forbids you to write. But Emilie didn't care. She just kept writing. Let me see if I can find an interesting passage for you. There's one passage from 1874 where two men were sort of courting her. One of them she liked a lot more than the other, and she was also considering marrying him. Not really, but like it was in her mind. And then she writes, Der junge Bela ist mein heißer Anbeter. Er und der andere sind Rivalen, die sich meine Gunst streiten. Je suis bonne pour tous les deux. She uses a lot of French in there, which was pretty hard to transcribe. Das bringen wir Frauen zu Wege. She got into a fight with him, and then they kind of didn't really talk to each other anymore. Then there is another man that she talks about that was also in 1874. His name was Alphonse, but she only calls him cet homme, dieser Mann, that man. And she writes, Ich habe ihn wiedergesehen, cet homme, gestern im Konzert. Gott sei Dank, interessiert mich noch. Marie, that's her sister, Marie hat absichtlich ihren Muff fallen lassen, den er sogleich aufhob und ihr mit einem leichten Lächeln zurückstellte. Er ist nicht so kalt, so abstoßend und fürchterlich, wie ich mir gedacht habe, und wer weiß, was ich noch unternehmen werde. Another situation was with a different man. He was French, and then they were supposed to meet in a coffee house as a date. But she didn't show up. She wrote him a letter that she wasn't interested anymore. She writes about this. Das Kaffeehaus Stell dich ein hat nicht stattgefunden. Die Sache machte mir keinen Spaß und so beschloss ich, ihr ein jähes Ende zu bereiten. Dabei beging ich aber eine recht jugendliche Dummheit. Anstatt einfach nicht ins Kaffeehaus zu kommen oder, wenn ich höflich sein und den Herrn nicht vergebens warten lassen wollte, ihm ein paar erklärende Worte zu schreiben, trieb mich meine Eitelkeit, ihn zu verletzen. It goes on like this, but it's so funny how her actual intention was to hurt him. Just because she wasn't interested in him anymore. There are many anecdotes like this, but there is one aspect that I would like to address that is a little bit sad if you think about it, because she considered marriage in a few situations. There is a long passage with the author Karl Emil Franzos where she felt like, okay, I'm going to marry to have more freedom because right now I'm living with my father, later on with her stepmother because her mother died, and with her siblings, and she feels so trapped. At the beginning she was not allowed to write. Her family didn't support her except for her siblings. Her siblings did support her in her ideas and her wish to become a writer, which started very early on. She was very sure that she wanted to write, but she only wanted to marry for the sake of getting out of her parents' house. There is one passage where she writes, Schon der Umstand, dass ich den Mann zum Heiraten brauchte, empörte und verhärtete mich gegen jeden, den ich als möglichen Ehemann ins Auge fasste. Überdies war ich, was mir in jener Zeit selbst noch nicht ganz klar, von einer selten herben Jungfräulichkeit, die sich gegen jede männische Berührung wie gegen etwas sie Beschmutzendes auflehnte. Ich hatte noch kein einziges Mal geküsst, wollte nicht, konnte nicht. Ich hätte eines Morgens aufwachen und mich schon seit Wochen verheiratet finden müssen, dann wäre es gegangen. And this part where she writes about the fact that she doesn't want to be touched and she doesn't want to be kissed by someone gets very intense later on with Franzos, who does kiss her. He proposes to her and she says yes, and then he kisses her and she feels so grossed out by it, and the way she describes it makes me really sad for her that she experienced this and that she felt like she has to go through it. She also writes about the fact that after the kiss with Franzos, she hated it even more when a man touched her. He realizes she's not in love with him, and then they stop this whole thing. She also says about marriage, die Ehe ist nichts für mich. Wie muss es langweilig sein, stets zusammenzuhocken, immer dieselbe Stimme, dieselben Gespräche zu hören. Ich möchte einen Freund haben, einen wirklichen Freund, der mich verstünde und den ich gern haben könnte. Als meinen Kameraden, nur als meinen Kameraden. Ich möchte ein Mann oder nie geboren worden sein. She wishes for a friend, and then she also says that she wanted to be born as a man. She says that quite a few times. She also referred to herself as he when she was younger, when she was a kid. And I think, yeah, there are many layers in that and you can analyze it, but these are some snippets that I can give you in this video. I mean, we don't know how much of it meant that she didn't want to be a woman per se, but there is definitely the sense of she felt the restriction of her own gender. And yeah, it comes through in her memoir or in her handwritten documents quite a lot, and I think it's very interesting. She had many other correspondences as well. One is with Leopold von Sacher-Masoch. This is a picture of her, by the way. This is what she looked like. The hat is an interesting choice, in my opinion. The most men that she wrote to was to seek guidance in her writing. She wanted help. And Sacher-Masoch was an author. They also had this kind of erotic thing going on. I mean, only via their letters. I didn't mark anything in here, so I don't have a great passage, but it's scandalous to read. That was a lot of information. I hope it was interesting for you. I definitely loved transcribing this document, and I would do it again. And yeah, it was such a big help in my thesis. And now that I got the hang of it, I feel like I could also do it with other handwritings that are maybe even more difficult. But now I should focus on finishing my master thesis. It is time to finish my tea and wish you a wonderful evening. I talked so long that it's getting darker and darker. The sun is already gone outside. Thank you so much for being here, for watching my videos. If there is anything else you would love to know, or if this is a topic that you are interested in, please let me know. I can also tell you a little bit more about Else Jerusalem. I think she's not that known. Also, would you transcribe over 200 pages? I think I wouldn't have done it if I had realized how much it actually is, but anyway, I did it and it was great. If you have a spare coin, you can also support me financially over on my Ko-fi account. It is linked down below, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye. Like, ow. It turned out that Emilie, shout out to my friend Emily, with Leopold Why am I not able to say names normally?